Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here in person, speaking about a topic that we both feel particularly passionate about. Going along with the theme of reducing stress in your PCI assessments, we're going to be speaking about leveraging PCI ICEs to scale the effectiveness of your compliance program. My name is Walid Barakat. I serve as the Senior Vice President of Global Payments GRC team. I've been part of the payments industry for the last 20 years, serving in various roles from application development and data center migration planning, and now find myself in the compliance space.
And hi, I'm Todd Davenport. I serve as the director of our PCI compliance team. I have more than 30 years of information security and compliance experience in both the public and private sectors. The past 7 years have been focused on the financial industry.
What we will be speaking to you about is really based on our very own experiences as we've had to meet the challenges of maintaining compliance for an enterprise that truly spans the globe and is constantly evolving. Here's our agenda, which we think you'll find informative. We're going to start speaking about the need for ICEs in our organizations, how to apply those ICEs, and really how to gain support for an ISA program in your organization. And just to ensure we're on the same page, let's align on what an ISA is. A member of an organization who has successfully completed the PCI Council's official internal security assessor training and has successfully passed the exam. Now, what's particularly great about this training is that it's the very same training that assessors undertake. Now, that said, we're not inferring that anyone who passes the ISA exam matches the capabilities of a QSA. Their years of experience, additional training, and certifications grant them a much broader and in-depth understanding of security threats and control testing. Now, typically, ICEs are found as members of the compliance team. What we will be discussing today is the opportunity to really use those ICEs, yes, as the foundation for your compliance team, but really think beyond that and embed them in other areas of your organization. So let's start about talking about the need to have certified ICEs as that foundation for compliance knowledge in your organization. Starting off with achieving compliance in year one truly is hard enough. Ensuring your regular cadence compliance processes run to schedule and that you're able to collect the volumes of required evidence. But that challenge to maintain compliance significantly increases when you consider the ongoing change that companies are constantly going through. And that volume of change to people, process, and technology has really been exacerbated by the pandemic pivots and the new technologies that have really worked their way into our BAU. Accumulations of varied infrastructure, introducing unique environments to support, and somehow every merger and acquisition seems to be a good source of this. Many of us are taking on cloud transformation projects, which introduce new environments and processes that we have to determine how to incorporate into our compliance programs. How to implement and apply new tool capabilities for the greatest benefit with the least security risk impact. Those workforce changes to distributed models across the globe that now require security and compliance education and process governance. And the introduction of various SaaS solutions, which require thoughtful integration and compliance considerations. And I'm sure many of us in the audience can rattle off several other impactful variables to this list. Most pressing probably is the questions around PCI DSS 4.0. So simply put, the highly dynamic nature of our organizations demand a self-equipped, knowledgeable workforce to deliver solutions while preventing unnecessary security and compliance risk. And having certified ICEs embedded in various areas of our organizations can really help balance the risk of the ongoing change and ensure compliance considerations are applied at the outset of these changes.
So now that Walid has laid a solid foundation and framed our discussion around why we need ICEs, I'd like to talk a little bit about how ICEs are critical to the success of your compliance program and some of the logistics and benefits involved in establishing an enterprise ISA program. Now, I think we all could agree it's absolutely essential to have ICEs on your compliance team. I mean, they're ultimately responsible for monitoring and managing your compliance program. They'll be coordinating assessment schedules with your QSAs. They'll be facilitating the interview and observation sessions that take place during the assessments. They document, track, and submit evidence to the QSAs. And they also, help the QSA track the remediation items during the assessment to resolution. And finally, they review the report on compliance to make sure that it accurately reflects your cardholder data environment. And they report on the status of your compliance program and your assessments to senior leadership. But doesn't it also stand to reason that having the team members who are responsible for designing, implementing, managing your security controls, and interpreting your compliance program's standards and policies be ICEs as well? This would allow them to have the same knowledge and perspective as the QSAs that they'll be interacting with during the assessment. Having informed and knowledgeable ICEs kind of demonstrates to the QSA the organization's level of commitment to their compliance program. And it tends to foster an atmosphere of collaboration and trust. That foundational understanding leads to productive dialogue throughout the year, a continuous communication with your internal teams, reduces friction, and actually saves time during the assessment. But this just isn't enough. It's just the beginning. So don't stop there. Now, in this day and age of do more with less, it's likely your compliance team is spread thin. I know that ours certainly is. And there simply aren't enough people or hours in the day to get involved with every activity we need to. This creates a potential compliance vacuum or gap, a virtual compliance vortex, if you will. And that could lead to unnecessary security and compliance risk. So here's where we have this opportunity to step up our game. We can open up that ISA training opportunity outside the bounds of the compliance team and plant the seeds for a compliance culture throughout your organization. So I believe in the wisdom of the crowd, and that's exactly what this is about. By empowering those individuals who are in key business areas to design, test, and implement your innovative solutions, who make decisions on vendors, who apply the latest security and monitoring tools, they can establish themselves as a certified and knowledgeable ISO workforce with the necessary compliance knowledge base to make sure that their decisions, their influence, and their guidance are based upon sound compliance practices. This encourages empowerment. It will lead them to assess their own designs and their plans and to ask themselves questions and their teammates if they may be inserting unnecessary security or compliance risk. This has the potential to be a game changer because it effectively inserts compliance into the system development lifecycle. So here are a few examples of daily opportunities for those decision makers to flex their compliance muscles. They'll have a better understanding of how design decisions impact compliance posture. Considering compliance guardrails earlier in the life cycle should increase efficiency and ensure they are acting in a thoughtful and holistic manner, not to introduce additional risk themselves or to cause some type of downstream friction in the form of redesign, project delays, contract updates, or just direct conflict with requirement intents. Excuse me. So having ICEs who are directly involved in day-to-day design, implementation, and operational activities enhances the ability to make informed decisions about your compliance risk. The ISA knowledge of requirement intent gives them an improved understanding of what assessors will be looking for. And that helps them to consider implications of design decisions on a broader spectrum. So now that you have ICEs embedded throughout your organization who are involved in the system development lifecycle, we can shift compliance to the left, and it becomes a business as usual activity. This model creates a structure allowing the compliance team to primarily focus on strategic initiatives, like report on compliance certifications, coordinating with the payment brands, assessor coordination, and assessment management, while the embedded ICEs can focus on activities such as new project designs, new vendor selections, front-end integrations, and implementation of compliance at the tactical level. So all of this can result in increased efficiency, earlier identification of risk and the associated mitigation and remediation actions, and reduced remediation actions during an assessment. Now, Walid's going to talk a little bit about what it takes to seek support for this type of a program.
So all those benefits are wonderful, but how do you actually get an ISA program implemented in your organization? For us, again, these are all based on our examples. It really starts with leadership, getting them on board. Getting leadership to understand and set the right tone means getting them to understand the value of that training and all the benefits that Todd just noted, both for themselves directly and their staff members. So the points listed here are examples of, again, what we've personally undertaken to raise awareness and expand our ISA roster. Starting off with finding those key leadership levels to set the example by taking the training themselves, getting them to understand, participate, go through the training, taking the exam, and getting them to actually see how it interweaves with their BAU compliance responsibilities. Recognizing team members both internally and externally through LinkedIn posts, company intranets, and recognition awards. Tracking ISA roster metrics and sharing staff member testimonials about how their ISA knowledge has benefited their projects, their initiatives, getting them to realize that particular benefit, again, in their BAU, really gets people to understand that this training simply isn't a compliance requirement or benefit. It truly benefits them in their day-to-day role. And what we've actually been called upon to do is attend various staff meetings from those areas that Todd spoke about earlier, the legal teams, the engineers, the application teams, to personally speak about the ISA training, address any questions that we might be able to address to give them that personal comfort that it is an endeavor worth undertaking. And finally, promoting a true ISA sign-up campaign through executive leadership communications, and again, through our ongoing internal communications. So finally, we wanted to leave you with some takeaways here. Again, underscoring the fact that the dynamic nature of our organizations, both large and small, really demand a self-equipped workforce to deliver solutions while preventing unnecessary security and compliance risk. We have an opportunity to empower our staff, including and beyond those around our compliance team, for the BAU challenges and the questions that they interact with on a day-to-day basis and that PCI 4.0 will introduce. The speed brought in by baked-in compliance, as Todd noted, shifting left, across project teams that drives considerations of how to apply those compliance controls at the design, the operational, and the maintenance phases. And that assessment efficiency that we're all seeking, right? Understanding the intent behind the testing of the controls allows them to prepare the evidence in advance, have a productive dialogue with QSAs so that you move through an assessment with the least amount of friction. And accountability, introduced by teams who really do understand controls span across team boundaries and require effective collaboration throughout the year. And lastly, that PCI literate staff allows your organization to meet ever-changing business demands from a posture of preparedness and awareness and proactivity, which again, really is the intent of PCI collectively, to remain compliant year-round. It's been our pleasure speaking with you. Happy to address any questions that you may have offline. Thank you.